History is a very important subject. By studying history, we learn about the mistakes that were made, the great achievements that occurred, and we can only understand history once we know the difference between BC AD, BCE, and CE. In fact, there is an ongoing discussion in the academic world about whether it's time to completely stop using BC and AD and fully switch over to BCE and CE. Let me explain this issue in simpler terms, and then I will tell you the difference between these terms. First, in front of you is a very basic Wikipedia page discussing the history of India. You'll notice that there's a lot of information here, but nowhere will you see BC or AD. Instead, you'll find BC or CE. This shows that the use of BC and AD has been phased out. Whether we talk about the medieval period or the modern period, AD is no longer in use. Instead, you'll find CE written. So why is this the case? First, you need to understand what BC and AD actually mean and why the entire world used them for so long. BC stands for before Christ. For example, if we see 1000 BC, it means 1,000 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. You may say, wait, we've often seen BC and AD in our school textbooks. Now, gradually, BC and AD are being replaced by BCE, before Common Era, and CE, Common Era. For example, the famous battle between Alexander and Porus, which we often call the First Battle of the Jalum, occurred in 326 BC. BC means before Christ. So yes, for a long time, the world used the birth of Jesus Christ as a reference point for dividing history into two parts, the time before his birth and the time after. When we talk about the First Battle of Panipat, it happened in 1526 AD, or Vasco da Gama arriving in India in 1498 AD. AD stands for Anno Domini, which means in the year of our Lord, referring to the time after the birth of Jesus Christ. Now, you might wonder why we divide time like this, before and after the birth of Jesus Christ. Interestingly, this system was originally used in Europe, where Christianity was the dominant religion. This system was also adopted by Arab countries, India, China, and most of the world. So, why was the BC/AD system created in the first place? The reason is that there was no proper year zero before this. BC/AD gives us a reference point, the birth of Jesus Christ. Year zero doesn't technically exist, but we consider it the starting point for calendar. After the birth of Jesus Christ, years began to be counted as 1 AD, 2 AD, and so on. Today, we are in the year 2024 AD. If we didn't use BC and AD, we would have no clear idea what year it is. Human history is considered to be about 100,000 years old, with early civilization starting around 12,000 to 14,000 years ago. Without a proper system, we wouldn't know if we were in the year 15,000, 100,000, or 200,000. That's why the BC/AD system is crucial. The system was created by a monk named Dionysius Exiguus around 1,500 years ago. This system has been used for centuries, and we still follow it today. But you may wonder why we call it the Gregorian calendar. The reason is that Pope Gregory XIII commissioned the creation of a new calendar system, known as the Gregorian calendar, to address issues with the Julian calendar, such as leap years and date inconsistencies. Pope Gregory's calendar used the birth of Jesus Christ as the central point of reference, and this is why it is called the Gregorian calendar. Now, you might think, what about other calendars around the world? Yes, other civilizations like Islam, China, and India have their own calendars. For example, the Islamic world uses a different calendar, starting from the year Prophet Muhammad migrated from Mecca to Medina. Similarly, China uses a lunar solar calendar with its own reference point. India has two calendars, the Gregorian calendar and the Shaka calendar. The Shaka calendar is the national calendar of India, and it is also used in official government notifications. The Shaka calendar starts 78 years after the Gregorian calendar, meaning that according to the Shaka calendar, the current year is 1945. So why did the whole world adopt the BC/AD system? The reason is that, over time, this system became globally accepted. When the British came to India, they brought the Gregorian calendar with them, and it became widely used. As Europe explored and colonized other parts of the world, countries like the US, Canada, Japan, and Russia also adopted it. Eventually, the whole world agreed that if we were to trade, communicate, or travel, using the Gregorian calendar was essential. Now, your question might be, why has BC/AD been replaced by BCE/CE? Well, while BC/AD was globally accepted, there was a growing demand for a secular calendar system. People wanted to remove the religious reference of Christ and use terms like before Common Era, BCE, and Common Era, CE. Scholars around the world agreed that this change would be more appropriate for academic contexts. So, BCE replaces BC before Christ, and CE replaces AD, Anno Domini, or in the year of our Lord. Today, we live in the year 2024 CE, which is a common era. This change is gradually being adopted worldwide, though the Gregorian calendar remains a global standard. In conclusion, whether we refer to Ashoka the Great's birth as 232 BC or 232 BC, both answers are correct. And whether we say the current year is 2024 CE or 2024 AD, the underlying system remains the same, with the birth of Jesus Christ as a reference point for the calendar. So, I hope this clarifies the history behind BC, AD, BCE, and CE. The shift towards BCE and CE is a reflection of the world moving toward a more secular mindset, while continuing to follow the Gregorian calendar.